It's no secret that technology is everywhere. And some of you might be surprised to know how much technology is involved in the funeral industry. Well, it certainly is, and we're going to find out all about that today, so stay tuned. Morning, everyone, and welcome to Scan FYI. My guest today is Michael Grandi. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Andrea. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Sometimes the only opportunity I have to see anybody is on Zoom, so it is nice to see you on Zoom.
Exactly, exactly. Thank you.
So you are the Vice President of Funeral Operations at Jersey Memorial Group, but why don't
That's
you just
correct.
briefly let people know a little bit more about you, and then we'll get into our conversation.
Certainly. I've been a funeral director now for almost 25 years, and started my career with Jersey Memorial Group back in 2001. We were operating, one single location funeral home, and as the company has grown now into 14 funeral homes between New Jersey and Pennsylvania, my role within the company has grown as well and expanded. And yeah, now I'm in charge of running all of our day-to-day operations across the entire company. So, as even though I'm still, I'm in an executive position, I still meet families. I still take funerals. Funeral services in my blood. It's why I got into this industry. I enjoy taking care of people.
Well, certainly, I think people have some awareness that technology has gotten, well, it's everywhere. And I think
Mhm.
people do have some realization that it is in the funeral industry as well. But tell, so I don't even know where to begin because there's so much to talk about. So I'm going to let you start just from the idea that I know people see obituaries and whatnot online now. That's a good starting
Yeah,
point.
and as we talk about it, I'm probably going to date myself a little bit because we're going to talk about things before like email and faxes and being able to do all these things that simplified it. But you're absolutely right. Technology has changed not only how we as humans interact, but how we share data, the speed of doing so. And what people don't realize is there's so many things in funeral service that now have to do with technology. And as we talk, um, I'll be able to explain. I mean, a lot of people know during COVID, we had a lot of technology in place. When COVID happened, the funeral industry was forced to really employ technology, which
Right.
now has made it almost the norm. So let's talk about obituaries. If I go back to my early career in '98, when we would have to put an obituary in the newspaper, we would call the paper and we would talk it to them over the phone, and they would have writers writing it. And if we had to get a picture in the newspaper, we'd get in the car, we'd get a picture from the family, and we would drive it down to the Asbury Park Press building and hand deliver a photo. And as faxing started, we were able to fax type obituaries and then fax them. Once scanning and emailing became popular, we were able to, email obituaries, scan photos. And then what ended up happening was it gave us the ability to share this information with the family for proofing. Because before that, if you were just talking an obituary, they would
Right.
read it back to you. Once you saw it in the newspaper, what was
Done.
in print was in print. So now, proofing is involved, and it's even gone one step further. And, now the newspapers have online portals that funeral directors just log into. We upload our own information, our own photo. We don't even deal with the newspaper, and it goes to print. So it's completely, hands free of even dealing with the newspapers now. So, yeah, that's really how obituaries have, changed, from being antiquated to now, sharing information and having families proof them and see them before they ever hit the paper.
So obituaries are still being published in newspapers. I feel like pe less and less people are reading the newspaper, but they're
Readership is
still being
certainly
published.
Yeah, readership is certainly down in the newspaper. Some of your more traditional families prefer to have it in print. more or less because they want to have it as a keepsake. They want to cut it out of the paper and maybe laminate it, use it as a bookmark. But as far as that, an obituary getting information out to the public, obituaries and newspapers no longer really serve that purpose because, again, everything's online right away. It's on our website. People are Googling to look for, service information, get directions, send a flower. That's all happening well before anything ever hits the newspaper.
Right. Well,
So,
that kind of makes sense. And of
yeah.
course, I know that a lot of times when someone passes away, and I'll receive in my email a link to read the
Mhm.
obituary, and
Yeah.
then there'll be a link to sign the guest book digitally.
Yeah,
And I guess that's
absolutely.
and very often in the guest book there'll be photos.
Hmm.
So
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
it's pretty well, I kind of like it because I like that it's quick and
Hmm.
everyone has instant access. But now how does you've got in your notes that you sent me like filing death certificates, even this is all an online situation?
Correct. I mean, years ago, when we would go to a hospital or nursing home to pick up a decedent or bring a decedent into our care, we would be given a blank paper death certificate by a doctor or nurse that would have the time of passing and the pronouncement time. And we would ultimately, find out who the doctor was that was going to be signing the death certificate or the family's, primary physician. And we would drive it down to their office and we would sit in the waiting room, give it to the receptionist, sit in the waiting room for 20 minutes to a half hour waiting for a doctor to see patients. And they would bring that death certificate out to us with the signature and the cause of death. And then that would ultimately come back to our office where we would compile and place the rest of the information on there. And then once that was completed and signed by the funeral director, we would drive it to the local municipality and give it to the registrar of vital statistic in the health department, who would certify the death information and issue us burial or cremation permits. So that was all done, all in person, driving around doing these things. And then we, in 2009, EDRS, which is the electronic death registration system, was created. And now it's all done digitally through the state health department. So when a death occurs, we're provided with a case number that we can access to place all vital statistic information. The doctor is notified electronically via email with that case number that they have to sign it. And once everybody signs it, the death certificates are issued and they're sent to us UPS from Trenton, delivered right to our door. So now, since really probably 2013, when the system was really working well, we've been completely hands free, and a death certificate doesn't become a piece of paper until it's printed from the state health department system. You know,
Right.
so yep, yep. So even that's changed.
Wow, listening to you describe how it was, honestly, it's feeling very primitive to me, but that was the norm, and honestly, it wasn't that long ago.
No, no, yeah. I mean, we're talking less than 15 years ago.
Yeah.
We were running around to doctors' offices, and when you think about the time and labor and resources.
Yes.
I mean, where we were in Marlboro Township, if I had a doctor in Tom's River, you're driving an hour, waiting a half hour to get it signed, and then an hour drive back. You know, just for one death certificate, one family. And sometimes you're dealing with five or six families. So
Yep.
it required a little bit more staff and resources to get those things done.
So it's definitely, I would say, streamlined the process for you, for everyone in the industry. That's a good thing. And
Yeah.
now, what about when someone passes away, but there's family in California, there could be family, God knows, anywhere in the country. Do you
Mhm.
also now have the ability to sort of cast or webcast a funeral online so
Correct.
that
Yeah.
people, so how does that work?
Yeah, so that for us, that really happened during COVID, when we were told that we could no longer do public funerals. Families wanted to webcast or Zoom or
Right.
FaceTime, be able to show their other loved ones a casket or the remains so that they can, virtually say goodbye or participate in just a prayer. And we invested a serious amount through all of our buildings during that time in 2020 to bring in, CAD5 cables into our chapel areas, which we never had before, in order to plug laptops in. We
Right.
ordered camera systems on tripods, HD cameras with high definition sound that we could set up. And, we would ask families if they wanted to webcast a service. And over the last 4 years, not only have we webcasted here in the US, but we serve a lot of families that are Indian families, Chinese families, and we've webcasted all over the world in real time. So now those family members that may be in China or in India now can participate in a service and view it in real time right in our chapel rather than worrying about hopping on a plane and coming here. And if they can't do that for whatever reason, now it gives them the ability to participate. So, that was one of the things that we adapted to, when COVID happened and when we were no longer
Remarkable.
able to have public services. So we don't do it too much now. People still travel to pay their respects in person, but when you do have families that are disjointed around the country or people overseas, it makes it easier now to connect through webcasting.
I do think that is remarkable because I mean, I'll just remember when, when my dad passed away and my mother's sister lived out west, and you can't get there in time, or maybe financially you can't get there at all. And at least this is an opportunity that you would have never dreamed was possible. You could be there for your family,
Mhm.
even virtually. That I'm sure means a lot to people.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, just having the ability to keep people connected, which is the most important thing in any situation, especially when you're dealing with death. You can have that support even from afar. And, for those people that can't be there in person, it helps with the healing process from them because now they feel like they participated.
Of course. So what other ways has technology, in your mind, had a really big impact on this industry for the good?
Yeah, I mean, let's take websites for instance. I mean, when websites were first created early in my career in 2001, again, it was a way to just share information, viewing and service information, publish an obituary. Now, our websites are being used as memorial web pages. We find people coming back on the anniversary of the death, sharing information, posting a note. You mentioned it earlier. There's online guest books where people could
Right.
post a tribute or a note. Families can upload their own photos and video and create albums on my website, without us having to get involved. So they've went from becoming a source of just information to now a memorial web page or a page in memory of their loved one. And you'd be surprised how many people go back on an anniversary of a passing and they share that link again so that people could reflect. Now, people do that through Facebook and social media because, if that page gets memorialized, they'll still post. But now
Yeah.
we're finding it with funeral home websites as well. Families are using that as a tool to remember, year after year. On my website, you can light a candle in memory of somebody, virtually. So sometimes they're doing that on the anniversary, and then the family gets to see that, and they know that somebody's thinking about them, in that first year, or maybe the second year or third year, as somebody acknowledges, that loss, even years later. Yeah,
We've come a long way.
yeah, no, we have, we certainly have. Now on our website, there's multiple pages of resources, whether it's grief and healing. We have an obituary writer where families now can write their own obituary. It uses AI technology. They could simply plug in pieces of information based on their loved one, choose the length that they want it, the tone that they want it to be written, and it will literally write an obituary for them. And now it gives them, that tool to make it a little bit more personal, because they always used to rely on funeral directors. We would compile all the information, we would write it for them, and we would get it to them for proofing. So now it gives them a little bit more of a control, because again, this is their loved one.
Right.
They want to tell their loved one's story, not have a funeral director within an hour or two, try to gather all that information and then phrase it in a way that's going to be meaningful. So even those tools now with our website give families the ability to, and the power to create their own obituaries.
Would you say at this point, Michael, is this typical now within the industry?
I would say yes and no. With all technology or advancements, it's going to be dependent upon the end user. I'll give you, for instance, when people started doing DVD tributes, and you'd walk into a funeral home and there were screens hanging on the wall with
Yes.
photos, right? We acquired funeral homes that were owned by individuals that didn't believe in technology or didn't want to invest in it. And it just wasn't their thing. And they were from the old school. So, every owner, you know, runs their operation, exactly the way they want to. We happen to be very progressive. So when new things come on board, we're really, you know, excited about trying it, exploring it, sharing it with our families, seeing how it goes. Some things will work, some things may not work. So it's really dependent upon the funeral director, the funeral home owner, what they want to invest, what they want to employ, and see how those things work. So most of the time now we're seeing forced to do it, because with the baby boomer generation and how the consumer has changed, they're demanding technology.
Mm-hmm.
They want those things. So it's really forcing you to be able to provide it to stay current in your
Right,
business and
right.
with the industry.
Well, if you're listening out there and you're intrigued by all this and you're a baby boomer like me and you're into technology, then Michael Grandi might be your man. So of course we will have all of his info if you want to reach out to him. And I'm really fascinated by all of this, Michael, because it's technology. I mean, if you resist it, it's not good. Don't resist. Resistance is it's futile because it's
Yeah.
it's there. And everything that you're describing in my mind is for the good. I don't see
Mhm.
anything bad about this.
Not at
I
all.
think that people like having more control, making things more accessible, not just, to your whole family. And as far as you in within the industry, I think it's making you a lot more efficient and streamlined, which is that's a good thing. And
Absolutely. I
honestly,
mean,
isn't
yeah.
it remarkable that you could go onto Google, type somebody's name, obituary, and you could find just like anything that you want. Whereas I'm thinking before you probably had to go research newspapers if you wanted to find an obituary. So yeah,
Yeah, there's been tremendous, information is very easy to get today, and that's what's most important. I mean, even you have experienced, electronically signing documents.
yes, of course.
DocuSign. Now, somebody may lose a loved one. They're in California, and they have the ability to get us authorizations and things that we need to do our job. With digital signatures, and it's again, it's technology is always going to have the good and the bad. Obviously in our industry, we've only, really seen good, because it's really given the families tools to stay more involved, more
Yes.
hands-on, have a little bit more control, and us be more efficient as funeral directors, helping to get things done, because you're not dealing with some of the things that used to slow us down, or the sharing of information.
All right, well, Michael, thank you
Yeah.
so much for being with me today. Really, I'm fascinated by this information. And if you're listening out there and you're looking for a resource in this industry, all of Michael's information will be in the description. He would make an excellent resource, because you know what? Preparation is everything, right?
Yes, it is.
Got to be prepared. All right, remember out there, if it's important to you, it's important to us. I'm Andrea Tarr, and we'll see you next time on Scan FYI. Bye, everyone, and bye, Michael.
Bye, Andrea. Bye, everyone.